Olá, Paz. Muito bem-vindo, muito bem-vinda. Este é o canal Ame Sua Sensibilidade. Espaço para a gente trocar conhecimento, experiência sobre o traço da alta sensibilidade. Eu sou o Fábio Cunha e eu estou dividindo aqui esse espaço com a Rosalira para trazer conteúdo para vocês. Bom, como vocês já sabem, né, eu já comentei acho que algumas vezes, o time que produziu o filme Sensitive, que é o filme que conta sobre o traço da autossensibilidade, tem a presença da doutora Elaine Aron, que conta como vai descobrir o traço, participação da Alanis Morissette, acho que muita gente já deve ter conhecido esse filme, né? Então esse time está produzindo um novo filme, dessa vez vai ser um documentário sobre homens altamente sensíveis. Então, tem um movimento muito grande, né, e muito esperançoso do time de pesquisadores, né, de todas as pessoas envolvidas com a produção do filme, de que esse é o momento em que os homens altamente sensíveis estão sendo chamados, né, a se expressarem, porque o mundo sofreu muito, né, com uma expressão tóxica da masculinidade. E uma das partes, né, de cura é justamente com a expressão de um masculino que seja saudável e sensível. Então, com esse filme, eles querem que os homens possam, né, se conhecer melhor, possam entender que eles não estão sozinhos, que existem muitos homens que são sensíveis, que não se encaixam no padrão habitual e que temos um poder de influenciar e de transformar o mundo. E então esse filme é um documentário que vai ter entrevistas com diversas personalidades, pesquisadores, pessoas que estão trabalhando com esse tema e como estratégia de lançamento eles estão divulgando, né, algumas entrevistas que foram feitas nesse filme. E hoje eles divulgaram essa entrevista do Dr Michael Pluess. Ele é um pesquisador, professor universitário, e ele também faz parte, né, do time de pesquisa da doutora Elaine Aron. E o foco de estudo dele é a suscetibilidade diferencial, que trata de como, né, cada pessoa tem um nível diferente de sensibilidade e como que as pessoas reagem assim, ao ambiente. Então, a pesquisa dele tem muita relação aos efeitos que o ambiente tem sobre pessoas altamente sensíveis. Então, que ambientes negativos têm um efeito maior em pessoas altamente sensíveis. Da mesma forma, né, um ambiente que seja positivo vai ter um efeito muito grande também. Então, ele comenta sobre isso, comenta também sobre essa necessidade, né, de reflexão sobre uma masculinidade que seja sensível, mas que não é sinônimo de fraqueza, né? Pelo contrário, né? Que a sua força é a própria sensibilidade. Então eu convido todos vocês a assistirem essa entrevista comigo.
This film has the capability of changing the lives of so many men who may not be aware that they're part of the hundreds of millions of men in the world who share a remarkable personality trait called sensory processing sensitivity.
Who better but men who are highly sensitive are the people that can help change the world?
There has been a general understanding, I would say, for quite a while that there is a special group, the highly sensitive person group. I think it will be very important to think about how does sensitivity look like, sort of from a masculine perspective, and maybe from a perspective, what is strong sensitivity looking like?
Thank you, Michael, for being here.
Sure.
And good day and good morning, UK. Michael, can you just start off with why sensory processing sensitivity has been so important to you?
It has been important for me for a range of reasons. So firstly, because it was linking to some research I was doing on something very similar called differential susceptibility. That's the idea that some children, so there's a focus on children, that some children are more affected by the quality of the environment that they grow up in compared to other children. Sensitive people are particularly impacted by their early environment. Yeah. And if the parents, the family create an environment that is quite restrictive, that can be actually quite damaging for people. So I'm glad I didn't have that. But also, in our own research, we find that if the parenting style is too permissive, where parents just, let the child do whatever they want to do, that is actually not good for sensitive children either. They need to have some guidance and some structure, but it shouldn't be too restrictive. I think it's very important for sensitive children that the parents give them opportunities to explore and to follow their interests, because they're very much driven by interests and passions.
Is it like you're sensitive or you're not sensitive?
So we tested that in various samples, and we actually found that sensitivity is distributed like any common trait following a bell-shaped curve. And we applied sophisticated statistical analysis to these data to see whether we can identify the existence of different groups. Could we find this highly sensitive group? Could we find a low sensitive group that makes up the majority of the population? And what we found consistently, we found three groups. We found that about 20 to 30% of the sample fits into a high sensitive group, and another 20 to 30% is at the lower end. They have a low sensitivity, but the majority, usually around 40%, is in the middle, and they have a medium sensitivity. So the sensitivity, the way that I understand it, or the way I define it, is the ability to perceive and process information about the environment, right? And that is absolutely important for us in order to be to adapt to the specific context within which we are living, right? If you don't perceive what's happening around you, if you don't process what's happening around you, you're not able to respond what happens, respond to threat or respond to opportunities. So sensitivity in that sense is of fundamental importance for everyone, and not just humans. We do find that trait in many species. It's absolutely important for most life. So therefore, I would say everyone is sensitive, but we differ in a degree of sensitivity. Some people are particularly sensitive, so they register things much more deeply and process things more deeply. And other people, they are still sensitive, but they just don't pick up that much. They don't pick up as much as other people would do.
When you have the trait and you grow up and you know it and you learn about it and you say, okay, I accept it, are there things we can do with it to heighten the benefits of it?
Well, what is important for highly sensitive people is to have figured out ways of how to regulate their ideal level of stimulation and to know what they need, right? So I think you can be a highly sensitive person in a high pressure job situation as long as you have the coping strategies in place to deal with this. So I think we can help highly sensitive children to develop coping strategies. That could be, behavioral strategies. That could also be just cognitive strategies and how to think about certain things. And I think if definitely highly sensitive people need more time to process and maybe need a bit more downtime. And therefore maybe need to be a bit more disciplined in, how often they are in very stimulating environments, or how often they are exposed to highly stressful experiences. But it doesn't mean they have to completely avoid them or that they couldn't deal with them. I think they can deal with them. And actually, I think what we see this refers to the topic of resilience. And the way we can think about resilience is that so people are resilient for different reasons, right? They can be resilient for different reasons. A low sensitive person is more resilient, right? Because they're less affected by what they experience. So if they experience something stressful happens in their lives, they will be less affected by it because they might process it less and they might perceive some of that to a lower degree. So they're more resilient in that way. So I think that was probably one of the key factors for sensitive people to learn to be resilient, because it's not necessarily naturally given to them, but because they are also particularly sensitive to positive experiences, such as support from other people. They will be able to draw much more from that support, and that will help them to be resilient, but maybe they need to learn how to do that effectively.
Do the highly sensitive people have an impact on society, or can we, if we apply it properly?
So I think it might already be the case that some of those people that are influential actually are influential because they learn to use their sensitivity in a way that it really helps them to influence other people hopefully for good. But I think there's something that needs to happen, particularly probably for men, is to really own their sensitivity and realize it's not a problem, it's not a deficiency, but it's actually something that allows them to do certain things that other people may not necessarily be able to do. For example, to really be able to tune in with other people, to understand the needs of other people, to understand maybe the complexity, to see the bigger picture, to develop creative solutions. I think these are some of the things that might be a little bit easier for some highly sensitive men, probably not for all of them, but maybe for some of them.
The reason we're doing Sensitive Men Rising, I have this hope, and maybe I hope I'm not being just idealistic, that we can curtail or help the masculinity escalation, the negative part of it.
You know, the question, what is masculinity, is obviously a big question, and to some degree a philosophical question, and our understanding of masculinity and femininity is very much shaped by our cultural understanding. What I experience again is when people find out about sensitivity and they realize that's them, it gives them hope, because they realize, oh, that's me. I'm not just weird. What I experience is not just weird, but actually this is experienced by many other people, and there's a reason why, and it's a good reason. It's not a bad reason. And because it is like that, we can shape what is masculinity, right? We can shape that.
Yeah.
And I think based on the fact that men can be highly sensitive and they can be low sensitive, masculinity should not be equated with low sensitivity. And high sensitivity should not be equated with weakness. I think it will be very important to think about how does sensitivity look like, sort of from a masculine perspective, and maybe from, a perspective, what is strong sensitivity looking like? What we need is, in a board, actually, it would be good to have some highly sensitive people and some less sensitive people, because they bring different things that are of value to the table.
That's the deal. Let's table it. Let's table it.
Yeah.
How do we pull this thing together so it's a benefit for the world?